Follow 912 on the Wondery app or Amazon Music to binge all 7 episodes right now. Episode 2. Too Soon. The satirical newspaper The Onion was started in 1988 in Madison, Wisconsin, right next to Bill's Key Shop on University Avenue.
We were a bunch of losers who were in and out of college and dropouts and paying our way through. Back then, you could work your way through college, and I was doing that.
John Crewson was a writer for The Onion for 15 years. And unlike fancier comedy proving grounds like the Harvard Lampoon, The Onion was pretty working class, in terms of staff and in terms of point of view.
I was tending bar. We had a dishwasher there. We had a guy working answering medical answering machine messages. We had a woman working part-time in a bank.
I always imagine that the where we were a bunch of losers thing is mythology.
Yep.
But it wasn't mythology. It really was a bunch of losers.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that, but we were. I mean, self-identified.
Losers in the best possible way, like the Bad News Bears or the Inglorious Bastards. They were edgy, anti-establishment comedy dressed up in the Trojan horse of Mick News, a parody of USA Today. At first, The Onion was actually a physical newspaper. They would drop them off on street corner news boxes and in coffee shops around Madison. The humor was pretty merciless, baked right into the familiar structure of newspaper headlines, like Bush reaches out to Hispanic community with generous tip, and Bill Clinton finally just shows America his penis. Eventually, The Onion adds an online edition, and they start getting national eyeballs. By the late 90s, they smell a chance to be more than just the local college funnies. They get agents. Investors begin poking around. They even get a book deal.
Yeah, it was a pretty big deal. It was a #1 New York Times bestseller.
Mike Lowe, another Onion staffer.
Kind of came out of nowhere.
What was it called again?
Oh, Our Dumb Century. Yeah, Our Dumb Century. 100 years of headlines from America's finest news source.
In 2001, they decide to move The Onion and its writers to New York. And when they show up, even before their first New York edition comes out, they're kind of a hit.
Just going somewhere and being like, The Onion, I love The Onion. And they quote a headline. That was, it was absolutely incredible.
Carol Kolb was an Onion writer. She'd go on to write for Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Just having that first love affair with New York and going to all the shows and going to the bars and just getting out of the subway and walking around the neighborhoods and just, I have a job, I'm here for a reason.
They get written up in the New York Times with a big ironic picture of them all at the Carnegie Deli, biting into brisket, goofing on their fresh off the bus status.
By that time, we'd gotten kind of arrogant about our talent. So we were feeling kind of full of ourselves at that point.
They finished their first New York issue and sent it off to the printers. Each joke, a flawless gem.
I remember that we had a headline about Cheetos.
They host a launch party at the Bowery Ballroom. They Might Be Giants was the entertainment.
If I remember correctly, it was sponsored in part by Mercedes-Benz and Johnny Walker. We were kind of a big deal.
For the folks at The Onion, things are going incredibly well. They're going almost too well. Almost like the setup before the punchline.
It was an eventful night, and I think I got home at 2 a.m.
The morning after their launch party, John wakes up, hungover, flops down into the chair by the window, and flips on the TV.
And the actual news was still the Monday Night Football game the night before. I'll never forget that Broncos wide receiver Ed McCaffrey broke his leg. And I thought, no, that sucks. I don't really like the Broncos or Ed McCaffrey, but, if you're going to go beat the Packers in the Super Bowl, then I hope you break your leg. And I look out the window.
Where the view is across the river to the World Trade Center.
And there was a smoking hole in the side of it.
The Onion's big New York comedy coming out party the night before, that was September 10th.
And I went into the closest little bodega.
Mike is on his way to the Onion offices when he hears the news.
They had a TV up over the door, and there was a bunch of people in there just watching. And that's when I saw the giant cloud, as big as a mountain, just covering all lower Manhattan.
They stopped the presses on that first New York print issue that they were celebrating the night before.
I just assumed, we can't do humor.
Todd Hansen was the head writer at the time.
Everyone on the staff assumed that, and so we canceled it and we just went dark.
And of course, who cares? It's just comedy, right? But here's the problem. The Onion isn't just a scrappy college comedy thing anymore. They have financial backers. They have payroll. They have ad buys to fulfill. Hell, they still have to pay They Might Be Giants. They can't just stop printing whenever they want. They have to put out their next issue. A whole newspaper full of topical humor about the news of the day, jokes about whatever everyone is talking about right now. You see the dilemma here.
Like on the level of extremes of like, okay, well, work is going to be hard to like, we can never be funny again. Like, where did your head sit that first day?
The first step is just like, oh, I don't think we're going to be doing that Cheetos headline anymore, you know?
From Pineapple Street Studios, Amazon Music, and Wondery, this is 912. Cantor Fitzgerald, an investment bank, had occupied 4 floors near the very top of the North Tower. Nearly 700 of their employees were missing, more than 2/3 of their New York office. On 9/12, the company sets up a crisis center for themselves at the Pierre Hotel on Fifth Avenue. And so that's where we go, all of us who still haven't found the ones that we're looking for, to the Grand Ballroom. There, under crystal chandeliers, whose light usually flatters society ladies and debs, we sit, unshowered, twisting coffee stirrers around our fingers. Or we stand, to scan the list of names again, taped to the gilded walls. The older staff at the hotel, they don't bother blending into the background anymore. They're the ones who know how to comfort, how to put a soft old hand with their acrylic nails and ours and squeeze. At one point, Carole King wanders in, the singer. She had been in town when it all happened. Not even she seems quite sure why she's here. So they wheel in a piano, and she sings "You've Got a Friend" to a ballroom full of puddles on the floor. And that's how it was. The next day, and the next, and the next, an entire city, the whole country, stupefied. Eventually, writers and the people who think out loud in public put a name to the strange way everyone is acting, beyond just grief or fear. They say it's the end of irony. This from Time magazine. For some 30 years, roughly as long as the Twin Towers were upright, the good folks in charge of America's intellectual life have insisted that nothing was to be believed in or taken seriously. Nothing was real. With a giggle and a smirk, our chattering classes declared that detachment and personal whimsy were the necessary tools for an oh-so-cool life. It goes on. The consequence of thinking that nothing is real, apart from prancing around in an air of vain stupidity, is that one will not know the difference between a joke and a menace. It was the ultimate I told you so, from the greatest generation to us, a bunch of spoiled brats who never knew real war, real existential tragedy, real hard times, just wasting our time on stage by making jokes about nothing on our sitcoms about nothing. Well, no longer. Irony was dead. Ironically, we had spent much of the 90s arguing about what irony actually is. But Alanis Morissette has suffered enough, don't you think? First, irony's classical definition.
Irony deals with opposites. It has nothing to do with coincidence.
This is comic George Carlin, with an explanation of irony that he recorded before his death in 2008.
Irony is, quote, a state of affairs that is the reverse of what was to be expected. For instance, if a diabetic on his way to buy insulin is killed by a runaway truck, he is the victim of an accident. If the truck was delivering sugar, he is the victim of an oddly poetic coincidence. But if the truck was delivering insulin, then he is the victim of an irony.
Now, you might know Carlin from a bit he began doing in 1972, called 7 Words You Can Never Say on Television.
All I could think of was shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits.
7 words you can never say, which he then proceeds to say over and over in 7 minutes of material.
Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. That was my original list. I knew it wasn't complete, but it was a starter set, you know?
Well, that bit would later become the basis for a Supreme Court case that upheld the censorship of language on television. That, dear listener, is irony. But beyond formal definitions, in the 90s, irony had become the shorthand for our general unseriousness, our faddish devotion to standing outside of every situation and commenting on it, rather than just experiencing it. Well, no more, they say. Now, shit is getting real, they say. And it felt 100% believable. Nothing would ever be funny again. How could it? People were jumping. From all the way up. Not just one or two, but dozens. Dozens and dozens.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the Late Show. This is our first show on the air since New York and Washington were attacked.
Even the men on late night had abandoned their post, then shuffled back one by one, cowed by their lack of words to describe what had happened. Letterman came first.
Watching all of this, I wasn't sure that I should be doing a television show because for 20 years we've been in the city making fun of everything, making fun of the city, making fun of my hair, making fun of Paul, well.
Conan came the next night.
I will be very honest with you. I have no idea how to do what we've been doing. I have no idea how we're going to get back to doing this again. That's how we all feel.
And then Jon Stewart, 2 nights later. I was a producer on The Daily Show then, standing just off stage with the rest of the staff, feeling like someone had pulled the parking brake at full speed. Our senses of humor had dropped right out of the bottom of the car.
So we're going to take a break, and I'm going to stop slobbering on myself in the desk, and we're going to get back to this. And it's going to be fun and funny, and it's going to be the same as it was, and I thank you. We'll be right back.
Tonight we come together for the first regular season professional sporting event in New York City since Tuesday, September 11th.
That Friday, New Yorkers took refuge in baseball.
We return to our national pastime, in part to show that America can and will go on.
Mets versus Braves, the players hugging on the field before the game.
And the pitch. High fly ball, deep to center field. It's way back. It may go. Gone.
The crowd clinging to a home run from Piazza as a sign. Even the Braves fans were feeling it.
A 2-run homer for Mike Piazza. He hit it over the center field.
To be clear, it's not that situations begging for ironic commentary had stopped happening. I mean, George W. Bush, constantly mocked for being dim, he learned about the attacks while sitting in a class of second graders, reading to them from a kid's book called The Pet Goat, for Pete's sake. Rudy Giuliani was being called a hero. They started calling him America's mayor, and New Yorkers agreed. And that first baseball game back at Shea Stadium,
oh, this is so exciting. I'm so happy to be here.
Liza Minnelli, in a gold-beaded getup, swans out to home plate to sing during the 7th inning stretch.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today.
I mean, serious opportunities for comedy were presenting themselves. There just weren't any takers.
New York, New York.
It really did honestly feel as though Gen X irony, which is like the driving force of my life, seems like it's permanently irrelevant now.
Todd Hansen, Onion's head writer.
How can we be snarky?
Yeah.
Did you have the same feeling at The Daily Show?
Yeah. It also felt like life had changed so much that we wouldn't have the comforts of a life quiet enough to joke about. I mean, there were military jeeps going down the middle of 2nd Avenue.
Yeah. It's hard to adopt an anti-establishment position when the establishment is lying and smoking ruins at your feet. You don't feel as righteous about it. You no longer have that punk rock, like, screw you, Dad attitude, because you're like, oh, Dad, are you okay? you know what I mean?
I just remember that week being you just needed to talk to people.
Carol Kolb.
Like, we just need to talk about this thing.
And all of a sudden, how strange it was to find themselves doing inexplicably earnest things.
So we just went to the small gathering of friends, and in the backyard, there's just some food out.
This is Brooklyn, mind you. Back then, it was the deep, rich heartland of ironic detachment.
And one of the roommates hosting the party had baked this American flag cake.
Just a plain vanilla sheet cake, decorated like a flag.
And it just had frosting. It had like little strawberries and rose for the stripes. And it had like blueberries up in the corner. And I was just like, wow, if this person had done this a week ago, like, it was just unfathomable that like this person who's like a normal, ironic person would have ever like baked a flag cake.
Yeah.
It was so like sweet and heartfelt and sad. It was heartbreaking. We all just felt so at sea.
I don't recall at the time thinking, we stand on the cusp of history, gentlemen. Our jokes will determine humor. For it wasn't like that.
Onion writer John Crewson.
It was, listen, I know it's been a week, but I just want to go home and curl up in a ball some more.
Yeah. Todd Hansen, the head writer.
And so we just assumed, well, we'll just have to come up with material that has nothing to do with the current events. It's just like observational humor about life or something.
But even saying that, we'll just not talk about it. It felt absurd.
I mean, what else was anyone thinking of?
Writer Carol Kolb.
I mean, obviously you're not thinking of anything else. So if you're sitting down to write something, you're writing about this.
What we decided to do was come up with ideas and see if we were getting anywhere and decide from there.
So as the nation mourns and New York still smolders, literally, 10 writers show up at the Onion offices to tell each other 9/11 jokes, to see if it's even possible to do this at all.
So it was just like a bunch of like stinky, unkempt writers, with their little notebooks.
Everyone wrote just a mountain of stuff.
Staffer Mike Lowe.
And then you do your Onion meeting where, you pitch your stuff.
And you pitch in the form of headline.
Pitch in the form of headlines, that's right. No caveats, you can't be like, now I'm thinking maybe with this one we do kind of a thing. Nope, just give me the headline because that's what the reader gets, right?
And you do it in front of the group. So you either get a laugh and everyone builds on the joke, or silence, and it's pretty clear, and you move on to the next one. And as it begins, they can see what a challenge threading this needle is going to be.
I remember at the time that there was a particularly good, structurally good joke written by Tim Herod, one of the staff writers then, and it was, America stronger than ever, say quadragon officials. But we didn't use it because it's at the expense of the Pentagon, and all those people had died. And so, even though that was normally what the Onion's tone would be, it just didn't feel right for that issue. Does that make sense?
Quadragon is amazing. But you just can't do it. We had lost our bite. We had lost all sense of ironic detachment. We had become sincere. And that becomes the way forward.
One headline that did make me smile and still does kind of was rest of country temporarily feels deep affection for New York.
To laugh not at what happened, but at how hilariously earnest we had all become.
It's all about, like hugging up 76,000%.
Hugging up 76,000% is one of my favorites.
Or one of them was Jerry Falwell, is that guy a dick or what?
The televangelist had gone on his TV show blaming 9/11 on God's payback for abortion and all the lesbians.
That wasn't sarcastic. That was just a straight up, I can't believe that he's saying that this happened because of gay people in New York or whatever he said.
And pretty soon, their whole approach completely flips.
We realized we can't do anything about anything else. It's going to seem almost insulting.
The entire issue would be about 9/11, wall to wall.
It's like the guy in the Caine Mutiny who points the ship directly into the hurricane.
We kind of backed into the idea of comforting people or letting people know that they weren't alone and feeling weird about it. I eventually came up with the headline of "Nation vows to defeat whoever it is we're at war with."
I mean, I suppose you could argue that it's not particularly edgy or irreverent at all, and it's just kind of maudlin. But I mean, that was the time for maudlin, if there ever was one, in humor anyway.
But one story they wrote, one headline in particular, has always stuck with me. It's actually the reason I wanted to talk to all these Onion people in the first place, because I remember reading it so clearly.
The conceit behind the story is that this woman is so affected by the tragedy and she doesn't know how to respond to it. I can say this freely because I didn't write it, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. It was written by Carol Kolb.
And the headline?
Not knowing what else to do, woman bakes American flag cake.
Not knowing what else to do, woman bakes American flag cake.
And I guess that's what we were trying to do with our issue, We were trying to give people something that would affirms our shared experience, right? Yeah.
They had discovered that maybe what had felt like the death of irony was actually just shared experience. And we were all like, what's this? Because how the hell should we know? More so than at any time in any of our lives, something huge had happened. There was no more them over there to laugh at. It was only us, going through something together. Now, whether America was ready to actually laugh at finding ourselves in that situation, we'll get to that.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome George Carlin.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We're listening to the comic George Carlin again. I've always liked George Carlin. He reminds me of my Uncle Danny. Kind of sleazy looking, thin and wiry, but with a brain that does circles around the rest of us.
Fyodor Kaczynski, the Unabomber, one of my personal heroes, by the way. You bet your ass.
Carlin is known as a comics comic, lionized for a shit and piss humor steeped with social commentary. He hosted the first SNL in 1975. Rolling Stone called Carlin the second greatest stand-up of all time, second only to Richard Pryor.
After my dad died, there were 3 big storage units, and one of them had a lot of all the career stuff in it.
This is Carlin's daughter, Kelly. After her dad died in 2008, it became Kelly's job to go through the mountains of stuff that he had accumulated over the years, from nearly 5 decades of stand-up. And hang on, because this is where it all starts to get freaky.
And one of these things was a cardboard box of cassette tapes.
Like audio
okay. Cassette tapes. My dad taped every single show he ever did. That's how he learned what was working and what wasn't working. And in that pile were 2 tapes from 2 shows from the 2 days before 9/11 at the MGM Grand.
The 2 days before 9/11. They were from the 9th and the 10th.
Yes. Yeah.
As usual tonight, I've been doing a lot of complaining, a lot of criticizing, and people seem to like that. I thought maybe by now you might be ready to hear about something I like.
This is the recording that Kelly found on that tape. Carlin on stage, trying out new material that he had been working on for his HBO special. From the night before, anyone knew what was about to happen.
And he'd already picked the title, and he'd been working this material.
And what was the title of the show that he had picked out already?
I kind of like it when a whole lot of people die. Yeah, I really love it when a lot of people die.
Would you want me to tell you about something I really, really like? Huh? Fatal disasters. Big fatal disasters with lots of dead people. Because I kind of like it when a lot of people die. Some people like macrame. Some people like doing the mambo. Me, I like a nice train wreck. Fire in a paint factory, you know? Ship going down, plane blowing up, 500 guys trapped in a mine with no air, no water, and one little box of Junior Mints. I like that. It's exciting.
As 19 hijackers were triple-checking their plane tickets and stealing their nerve, George Carlin was opining on stage.
To me, anything that kills a lot of people is exciting. You know the best thing I can hear on television? We interrupt this program. You know the worst thing I can hear? No one was hurt. Ah, shit, no one was hurt.
This is the Carlin that people say, he's so angry and dark. The thing is that if you look at the world now, he was just trying to prep us for it. He saw it coming, people.
Seriously.
Tornado, hurricane, earthquake. Tornadoes are great because there's hardly any warning, you know? So you can get in there and fucking nail some people in their sleep.
But what I think of it is so interesting about the material that revolves around that concept of I really like when a lot of people die is that it is so truthful.
Well, of course, that's his job, right? Is to speak the unspeakable truth, right? Which is, and really what he was talking about was, and he and I, we would call it like weather porn. Like, you know, a big storm would hit, you know, Europe, and there'd be this huge flood through this Italian village. And I'd say, Dad, turn on the Weather Channel. There's cars and buildings floating down. And oh, isn't that fantastic?
Tidal wave, volcano, monsoon, forest fire, avalanche, a famine, huh? Come on, you can't beat a fucking famine.
You know, I remember when the tsunami hit Japan, which was absolutely horrific. I mean, I was up at 2 a.m. watching those images. So as on a very personal level, it was terrifying. And then there was a part of me in the back of my mind that said, oh, I wish my dad was alive. He would have loved this. The pure chaos of it. That's what he was talking about. Because what chaos does is remind us of our true position. You know, these egos, the hubris of human ego, thinking we are above it all.
And maybe the bigger the calamity, the greater the reset that might come after. And when we feel that possibility, sometimes our brains react in strange ways. I think people feel that feeling about I really like it when a lot of people die. I remember the feeling even of when it first happened, and then it looks like maybe 15,000 people died in that tower, and then the number kept coming down. And I remember a sense of disappointment in that it was smaller than we thought we had experienced. And so there's something so interesting that he really captures something that I think a lot of people were feeling. It's just such a shame we couldn't talk about it then.
It's good for our humanity. It's good to be humble and have some humility in the face of this thing called the cosmos.
Burning clouds of flaming rain fall upwards. Gamma rays and solar winds ignite the ionosphere, creating enormous clouds of ionized plasma. Lightning bolts 10 million miles long start shooting out of the north.
This hope that if the disaster is big enough, if the tragedy is big enough, we will snap out of it. Whatever it is for each of us, we will snap out of it, hoping that we can get on with doing it differently.
Vibrate and twist, and suddenly the entire fabric of space-time splits in two. A huge crack in the universe opens, and all the dead people from the past begin falling through. Babe Ruth, Tiny Tim, Groucho Marx, Davy Crockett, Hitler, Alan Ludden, Janis Joplin, your Uncle Dave, my Uncle Dave, everybody's Uncle Dave. An endless stream of dead Uncle Daves falling through the crack, and all the Uncle Daves gather around a huge heavenly kitchen table and light up cigarettes and start talking. They talk about how they never got a break, how their parents didn't love them, how they just missed out on a big job, how ungrateful their children were, and how the government screwed them out of money. They say the Jews own everything and the blacks get special treatment, and all of the hatred and bitterness drips out of them, a big pool of liquid hate, and the pool begins to spin. The hate pool spins round and round, faster and faster, and it begins to expand at a rapid rate, bigger and bigger, until the pool of hate is bigger than the original universe, and suddenly it explodes into millions of tiny stars, and each star has 1 million planets, and each planet has 1 million Uncle Daves, and all the Uncle Daves have good jobs, perfect eyesight, and brand new underwear. They all have shoes that fit perfectly, good medical plans, they all like their neighbors, and their favorite teams win the World Series every year, and none of them has a hacking cough. And each week, without fail, every one of the Uncle Daves wins the lottery. Every week, forever and ever, until the end of time, Uncle Dave has a winning ticket, and Uncle Dave is finally happy. Now do you see why I like it when a lot of people die? There you go. All righty. I'll see you later. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have fun. Take care. Be cool.
As for the folks at The Onion, they put their 9/11 issue to bed within a week. Were you afraid of how people were going to react to that issue?
Oh, my God. Everyone was. We honestly thought that everyone would hate it and that the New York would take it as an insult. It really felt like a potential onion ender event.
And I just remember being full of fear.
And off it goes to the printer, and it's just, pins and needles.
And we showed up for work, and there was faxes,
Explain to a lot of your listeners what a fax machine is.
Yeah.
But the first message on the fax machine was like, not funny, not funny, not funny, over and over.
In a really big font, like in all caps. And I was like, this is the end.
And then they just started pouring in. And I would estimate we got 5, negative comments. And we got a phone book worth of emails that we printed out and put into a binder.
All of them positive.
And we were just so relieved, like in our dumb comedy writer, stupid yuck joke way, that we could do something that was good.
We had people saying, I lost, my coworker. I lost someone very important to me, Someone had lost a sibling. And they were appreciative of our issue. We were incredibly humbled by that.
It really did seem, in those first few weeks, like maybe we might snap out of it. That Americans might choose humility for once, that we had broken through whatever had been holding us back this whole time from being better. And cutting through all that fear and incredible sadness and grief was hope and connection. And New York had never felt so thrilling. Of course, in what would come to be known as irony's greatest bit ever, it didn't die after all. At the Pierre Hotel, the debutantes would descend down the stairs once again. America's mayor would become disgusting once more, and 2 years later, Mike Lowe would write the Onion headline, "Dead Iraqi Man Would Have Loved Democracy." Irony is dead. Long live irony. Next time on 9/12, freedom.
Americans are asking, why do they hate us? They hate our freedoms.
I remember saying to him clearly, it's like, look, I don't care about God Bless America. I just have to use the bathroom.
Our freedom of speech, our freedom to vote and assemble and disagree with each other.
I'm like, look, guys, it kind of hurts. And he said to me, why don't you just shut your mouth or I'll hurt you more?
Everything was just changed.
Within weeks, there was like a sweep. I mean, just this block radius, 500 people were rounded up.
By the way, immigration likes to call it detention. It's really prison.
It was as if I moved to a new country.
I didn't know anything. I just started making phone calls. I just went everywhere, Yeah, my name is Mo Razvi. It's not Muhammad. Because every time I said Muhammad, it was like another brick wall. Muhammad who? Muhammad what?
What a difference a day made.
9/12 is produced by Courtney Harrell. Our associate producer is Natalie Brennan. Our researcher is Jessica Lessenhop. Our senior producer is Henry Malofsky. Joel Lovell and Maddie Sprung-Kaiser are our editors. Production assistance and research by Maria Alexa Kavanaugh. Fact-checking by Sarah Ivry. Original music by Daniel Herskadal, with Espen Berg on piano and Jakob Janssen on drums. Music licensing by Dan Kanishkawi. 9/12 is written and executive produced by me. I'm Dan Taberski. Jenna Weiss-Berman and Max Linsky are the executive producers at Pineapple Street. For Amazon Music, our executive producer is Morgan Jones. Marshall Louis is the executive producer from Wondery. The next episode of 912 will be out in 1 week, or you can binge all 7 episodes on Amazon Music or with Wondery Plus.
Lord, what a difference a day makes. There's a rainbow before me. Skies above can't be starry.